Hello, good people, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History. Signed, sealed, remembered, home on wheels at the Circle G. We're back on the ranch. It's February of 1967. Hi, Colleen. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. Elvis had a dream, building a big house, something bigger than Graceland, surrounding it with the houses of his friends. He was going to deed them all a piece of their own land. And that dream has fallen through. And this is sometime around February or March of 1967. And Joan Freeman, who once worked with Elvis in 1964 on the movie Roustabout, well, she was asked in 1967 in February. The press asked her what it was like to work with Elvis, to be near him. What was her relationship with him like? And she said, "We worked together for several weeks before he would address me by my first name. He was the nicest, most polite young man." Hi, Emma. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you. And on the screen, we can see Joan. And she's with Elvis. She says he was the nicest, most polite young man. And for whatever reason, she's remembering that at the same time that Elvis is developing his dream on the Circle G. And we know that on February 21st, Elvis traveled to Nashville on a Learjet, and he recorded songs for the movie Clambake. And one of those songs was "How Can You Lose What You Never Had?" And it was written by Ben Wiseman, who I believe wrote more Elvis songs than any other songwriter, although they're almost all movie songs. Hi, Marion. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And Ben wrote this song, and it has these lyrics, these words, which Elvis would have spoken or would have sang on February 21st. And those words are, "How can you lose what you never had? I tell myself when I'm feeling sad." Hi, Terry. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. But how can you lose what you never had? I feel myself, or I tell myself when I'm feeling sad. So these are words that I think might have really resonated with Elvis on the 21st of February, 1967. Because he's in the middle of losing his dream about the house and the houses for the others. Some of his dreams on Circle G are coming true, others, they're falling apart. But he never really had those dreams. They weren't real. They were all in his head. He hadn't made them come true yet. So he hasn't really lost them. So how can he lose what he never had? Tells himself when he's feeling sad. And Marty Lacker says about the new plan that Elvis hatched to give all of the guys trailers, house trailers, instead of an actual house instead of a plot of land. Elvis wanted to buy these house trailers, and it would be faster, be a lot faster than building the houses. And Marty Lacker says, I said, Elvis, if you buy house trailers, you've got to pour concrete pads and put in connections and sewer systems and all that stuff. And Elvis, he said, I don't give a. And he used a harsh word that I'm not going to use here live on the air. At least according to Marty. But he let Marty know it was all manure to him, that he didn't care what had to be done. He wanted these trailers, and he wanted them on the property. And so I find this an interesting story because we've heard earlier that the issue with the houses, the reason that that Elvis did not end up deeding the land or putting a down payment on a house for the guys, is that he was told by professionals, his accountant, his lawyer, who worked through Vernon, that it was not a good idea. And Billy Smith had said it was regulations and zoning and stuff that Vernon had mentioned. And so there were these obstacles that had come into play. And now Marty Lacker himself, he's one of the obstacles, saying, well, you got to pour concrete pads, you got to put in connections, and you got to put in sewer systems and all that stuff. So basically everyone around Elvis, even those in the inner circle that were, Marty wasn't going to directly benefit from this because he wasn't going to get a trailer, because he already had a house in Memphis that Elvis had put a down payment on. And he was all for the guys getting their own homes. But now that the trailers have come up, well, he sees issues with that, as if these issues would be harder to overcome than the issues of putting a house in. It's just, I find it just hilarious. Because when you look at the memories of all the guys, when they're collected within their books and such, there's just a lot of contradictions in the way that they think. And it's very human. We all have those contradictions within us. But when we put it into writing, and then you put it page after page as a book, at least myself, I begin to see those contradictions. But I think what happens with the guys is they orally transmit this to an author. And the author writes these things, and they never come back and, to like Marty or Sonny West or Alan Fortas and say, you said this here and you said this here. They don't really match up. Your feelings and your emotions don't seem to be the same about this particular item. But they never, that doesn't happen within those books. And so you get things like Marty saying that other people are the ones that are blocking Elvis. And then here he himself is in the story blocking Elvis. But he doesn't recognize that he's blocking Elvis. I have to give that to Marty as well. He feels that he's being helpful and pointing out things that might get in the way. Hi, Gunn. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And no, Terry, Terry's asking if this is a photo of Elvis from the movie Tickle Me. And no, this is from the movie Roustabout. 1964. And it's up here because of the nice thing that Joan Freeman, who's standing there with Elvis, had to say about Elvis. He was a very nice young man. Treated her very well. With a lot of manners and respect. Marty says that Elvis went out the first day and bought a trailer for Billy. It looked like a cabin. That's some really interesting information, huh? Like, we haven't known who he bought the first trailer for. We've heard a lot of times that he's bought 6 trailers, that he bought 8 trailers, that he bought 12 trailers. The most common number is 8 that we've heard so far. Comes up over and over in the stories, but I think they might be quoting the same person each time. That's what makes it tricky on some of these sources. As to how valid is this source? Well, it's out there a lot of times. Well, it might just be quoted from the same source over and over. But it makes a lot of sense that Billy would get the first one. Elvis really loves Billy. Loves him a lot. And that means Joe Smith was there in a trailer that looked like a log cabin. And so when we hear Danny Smith say on his show, Memphis Mafia Kid, that Elvis bought him a ranch coat, and there's pictures of him on the ranch on a horse wearing his little coat, that he was going home to this trailer that looked like a cabin. Right there on the Circle G. And Marty says Elvis bought a big luxurious trailer for Vernon to use when he wanted. And that Vernon liked the trailer so much, he decided it was okay if he had one. So this is a little bit of a dig at Vernon, saying that Vernon liked the trailer, so it was okay. I think Marty's saying if Elvis has one as well. But he might be saying that Vernon has one, that he didn't turn it down, he liked it a lot. Either way, it seems correct. But Marty does seem a little bit irked that Vernon got this luxurious trailer. And Marty says, then Elvis saw one he liked, a 3-bedroom, and he bought it for himself and Priscilla, and he let Alan have the house. So at some point, a 3-bedroom trailer gets put onto the grounds, hooked up. Now, we've heard in other accounts that it was put near the cottage, next to the cottage. We've heard in other accounts that all of these trailers are right in a row, up along a fence. Not really sure what the truth is. We've just heard these accounts, but somewhere there's this trailer. It's got 3 bedrooms. We've seen pictures of the inside of the trailer. If you haven't seen those pictures, be sure you go back into the archive. Check out our past episodes. We've done a whole lot of them on the Circle G. This is the deepest dive anyone on YouTube has ever done into the Circle G, and in every single episode, I release different information. You may know some of it, but I guarantee there's new information you haven't seen that's in these episodes. And if you find new information in an episode, please give me a like. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you got the notifications on so that you know the next time that I go live, which right now is every day at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That'll be 24 hours from right now. Be on again, sharing more about Elvis together. And make sure you tell everybody that you know that loves Elvis all about Hillbilly Cat history so that they can come here and join us too. And Marty says, we started taking daily trips to trailer display parks, and one by one, he bought trailers for each of the guys. I continued to stay in my home in Memphis. Marty's released to us another interesting detail. The way he remembers it, there weren't 8 trailers bought at one time. They went on daily trips, and one by one bought the trailer. Although I believe it's possible Elvis bought 8 during a particular trip, and then one by one bought until he had 12. That would match with what we know right now. at least what we believe we know from what we've been told by other people that were there. And Colleen says that Marty doesn't seem like he was very happy with Vernon. And I think that Marty has an emotional dislike for Vernon that increases over time from the point of Elvis's death to the end of Marty's life. And so, like, he increasingly dislikes Vernon over that time, even though Vernon has passed away. Because the stories that he tells in 1978, Vernon doesn't play a central role. He's not making decisions, negative decisions against Marty in those stories. And he's a much more likable person as Marty remembers him. But in later stories, Marty remembers wrongs that Vernon has committed, even though in the earlier stories, Marty wasn't even there at the time that he later says he's seeing facial expressions change on Vernon's face. So there is some kind of resentment there, and it's unresolved, and it colors Marty's later tellings, which I believe were also influenced by alcohol, because I believe at the time that he made a lot of those statements, they were making a book and they were drinking freely at the time. I can't prove that. Don't know that for sure. But they're very loose stories from all the people in this particular source. And it's kind of like when they made the book Elvis What Happened, Red and Sonny and Dave. They were all together in a hotel with the person who wrote the book, and they orally told them the stories, but they would have been lubricated themselves during some of those stories to get the stories flowing, right? Is the way they would have seen that. But that leads to a lot of loose tongues, and then things are said, we all probably have things inside us that we would say about people around us that we would never say if we were in our, completely controlled minds. And it's not a reflection of those people. It's a reflection of, problems within ourselves, weaknesses within ourselves, failings within ourselves. And we project these out, and then we have these nasty things to say when we get into these altered states. And I believe a lot of that is in some of the more popular, and by popular I mean they sold a lot of copies, books. We've got some comments about Roustabout and how they think it's a great movie. And Emma says that she remembered to give me a shout out on her channel. Thank you so much, Emma. And be sure to check out Emma's channel, Just a Girl Who Loves Elvis, and Terry's channel, Elvis History. They're both putting out fairly regular videos about topics that I'm not covering right now. And Terry's doing a lot of Elvis movie history, movies about Elvis, which is very interesting. And to get back to this storyline, Jerry Schilling now enters and has some things to say. And Jerry Schilling is, of course, the man who, he's 25 years old at this point in time, grew up in Memphis, heard Elvis on the radio the very first night he was played by Dewey Phillips, WHBQ, Red Hot and Blue, just like Becky Yancey, the woman who is Elvis's secretary right now. And Jerry Schilling, years later, was asked by Elvis to join the Memphis Mafia. And he took up that offer, and he's in the early stages of that right now. And he's had some great adventures with Elvis, including going to Hawaii, where he has met a wonderful woman whose name is Sandy, who is now his girlfriend and lives with him in Memphis. And she's riding horses with Priscilla. They're the two that kind of started all this, according to the legend. Elvis bought Priscilla a horse, Domino. Needed to get another horse to have somebody to ride with her, and that was Sandy. Then Elvis rode Domino himself and got hooked. And that's where the Circle G spun out of all of that. And Jerry Schilling, he's about to get married to Sandy. It's coming up real soon. And he says, Elvis approached a few of us about buying these trailers. He'd arrange everything and put up the down payment, and then we'd take on the rest of the payments. He thought it was a great way for us to own a piece of his ranch. So Elvis has approached Jerry, and he said, hey, I'm going to put this house here. I'm going to put a down payment on it. I'm going to deed over this piece of the land to you. Yeah, he might have mentioned that if anything ever goes sour, I'm going to buy the house back at full market value. So you'll get whatever you put into it back out. Plus probably Elvis's $5,000 down. Jerry doesn't say whether he did or not. But he's made this offer to Jerry. And it sounds like a pretty good offer. Or I'm sorry, it's a trailer, so it's not going to be a house, but it's still basically the same deal that he was offering before. Just scaled back a little bit. And Jerry says, I'd agonized over taking on payments for my own motorcycle. And I really didn't want to be putting money into a Mississippi house trailer. So this motorcycle that Jerry's talking about, in Los Angeles, Jerry bought, I think it's a Triumph motorcycle. And he was really proud of the fact that he could save up the money and go to purchase it, which was something to be proud about. He was good with money, or he was at least, he had the willpower to save the money that he needed to make this dream of his happen without asking Elvis directly for the money. Now, where did the money come from? Well, he was working for Elvis and Elvis paid it to him. But it wasn't a gift from Elvis. Jerry had earned the money. At least that's the way Jerry saw it. That's the way it really was. He had a job. Elvis was his employer. Earned the money. And he went with the money that he earned and he bought this motorcycle. And he did it on payments. And he drove it back to the house. And Elvis really loved it. And Elvis ended up buying every Triumph the dealer had and could get a hold of so that all the guys could have a Triumph. And they all went riding around Beverly Hills together. And I would imagine that by this point, Jerry's paid it off because he's saying he'd agonized over taking on those payments. So maybe he still has them. but he doesn't want another monthly payment. Says feels like he doesn't have the money for that monthly payment. Now, I'm not really sure what Jerry's expenses are at this point in time. I kind of believe I know what he was getting paid, which I believe was around $50 a week, which today would be around $500 a week, which sounds low, but all of his expenses were handled by Elvis. You know, he didn't have any of the normal expenses, and he's unmarried at this point. He has his girlfriend. They're about to get married, but that's another burden that he's choosing to take on, right? And my thinking would be he has to live somewhere, but he's not happy with this deal. He doesn't want it. Elvis has made the deal to him, and he's rejected it. So when Elvis told Marty about these plans for the trailers that he had, Marty, who had supported him throughout the house venture, now says, well, Elvis, you got all these regulations. So he's not very supportive. And then Elvis goes to Jerry Schilling and he says, hey, here's the deal. It's basically what I was offering you with the house, because the guys also all said they were disappointed the house deal fell through. So Elvis has found a way to offer Jerry the house deal, and Jerry says, well, I don't want to do it. No, I'm not supportive of this. I don't want to do it. So then Jerry says, Elvis and I had some frank discussions over this, and he just couldn't understand why I wouldn't jump at the opportunity. And Colleen is asking, is this before Elvis bought Jerry the house in California? I believe it is, Colleen. I'm absolutely certain it is. Yeah, there's no house in California at this point. Boy, now that you asked that question, though, that certainly makes Elvis seem even more generous than the purchase of that house has always seemed, doesn't it? I mean, it's one thing to buy somebody a house, but to have bought them a house after they rejected your offer to help them purchase a place when they're about to get married, in the I don't know that you could have got a better deal than you could have got for that trailer at that moment, and it would have been brand new. And Gunn saying, so Jerry had to pay for his, but Elvis paid for the other guys. No. Jerry is approached by Elvis to do this. This is going to be the deal. Elvis is going to offer this to everyone. I don't know how many he offered it to, but we know for sure he offered it to Jerry. And Jerry says, I don't really want to do this. And Terry says that he's distracted by all these cows in the background. Well, these are the cows that this is similar to how it would have been for Elvis on the Circle G. He would have rode out on his horse, and he would have had his big bag of bread tied to the saddle. Just, a loaf of bread in its plastic sleeve from the grocery store. He'd grab a slice out of there every so often to feed his hunger. And he'd watch these cows. Now, I don't know that these are the kind of cows he had, but to an untrained eye like myself, most cows look the same. Looks to me. But it would have been something very similar to this scene right here. So Elvis has offered Jerry this, what some might say is an incredible opportunity, not only to own your own place, your own brand new place, that, yeah, you're tied to it, but Elvis is basically saying that if anything goes wrong, he's going to give you all the money back. And you get to live next to Elvis Presley. So But Jerry, he's not as appreciative of this deal. But Jerry says resistance did not accomplish much. Elvis had already arranged for trailers to be leased and delivered. So, in some ways, Elvis has come to Jerry and offered the deal, but it's not as much of a deal as it is, hey, guess what you're going to be doing? I got you this trailer. Here's how we're going to finance it. And I guess Jerry, and I think this is another one of those tests of loyalty. Like when he gave George Klein a brand new car, well, George didn't get the full value of that car because Elvis said, let me have your old car, George. So George was really getting the gift of the difference between the value of the old car and the value of the new car, plus the value of it being a gift from Elvis and being a brand new Cadillac. I mean, there's prestige to go along with that. But when Elvis said, I need your old car, he handed over the old car. Here, Elvis has come to Jerry and said, got you this wonderful trailer. I need you to start making payments on the money with the money that I pay you. And I don't think Elvis possibly meant this to be forever. I don't think he meant to saddle any of you guys with a forever payment. I think perhaps there was a lot of financial obstacles, and Elvis was telegraphing to the guys, but he didn't want to tell them because then they'd go and blab it to Vernon that he thought up a way around all this. You guys will accept the burden of the finances at first. It will hide it from the ledgers, and then in a few months, I'll take care of the whole thing. Now, Elvis doesn't say that. But he says, hey, I got the trailer. I need you to start making the payments. And guess what? It's here. It's delivered. It's leased. And so Jerry says, I put up the money and started making the payments. So when Jerry says I put up the money, I don't know what money he put up because Elvis made the down payment and made all the payments to have it put in. But Jerry started making the payments. And Jerry says some of the other guys did too. So Jerry wasn't the only one that Elvis made the deal to. He went around to more of them. And so can you imagine if this is the reaction he got from every one of them, which I'm almost positive it probably was. Suddenly the money that's hitting their own pockets is taking a hit. He's done a loyalty test. Can your pockets take a monetary hit and you still be loyal? And this monetary hit is subject to question because although your cash flow has gone down, he's guaranteeing the funds to you if you have to end up leaving the property for whatever reason. And many of them put up the money. So there is resistance on their side, but I assume they've passed the loyalty test because Jerry says some of the other guys did too. They've put up the money. And then Jerry says, but as usual, Elvis ended up paying off everything. And to me, that's kind of the proof that it was all a loyalty test. Elvis ended up paying off everything. But many years later, Jerry does not see that there was a test here. He sees that Elvis was attempting to burden him, not with a gift, but with a monthly payment. Not with freedom, but with a chain, a financial chain. And Joe Esposito, he's got something to say about this too. He says, every morning, Elvis saddled Rising Sun and rode out to issue instructions to the contractor on how to do things and where everything would go. Only one trailer was placed near the main house, the one designated for Alan Fortas, who was supposed to be in charge of the ranch and his wife. Now we know Alan's wife's name is Jo. So Billy's wife, Billy Smith, his wife is named Jo, and Alan Fortas, his wife is also named Jo. And Joe Esposito, his wife, is named Joni. That's a lot of females named Joni with one guy that names Joe, right? But that's just something I've noticed. But now we know that the one trailer, the one with the 3 bedrooms, the nice one, that had been described earlier as Elvis purchasing for himself, well, Elvis has bought it for Alan Fortas. And Elvis is going to be staying in the cottage, according to Joe Esposito. And George Klein says, Alan Fortas moved into the little ranch house, and Elvis gave him the new responsibility of working as ranch foreman. I had an apartment in Memphis to drive back to, and frankly, I preferred heading back to the city than staying at the ranch. So I didn't really push for my own trailer, though Elvis kept promising that it was going to turn up soon on my own little corner lot of land. Well, we now know that George is not one of the friends that Elvis approached with the purchase your own trailer plan. George was going back home to his apartment every night. But he says Alan was living in the little ranch house. And so Elvis has brought in a whole bunch of trailers. And he's got all of his friends living in them. And some of them have gone through tested loyalty to live there, like taking what could amount to a cut and pay, as they're now shouldering the burden of the trailer payments. Although eventually, like Jerry says, Elvis is going to take care of the whole thing. But Elvis has gifted them all with a house on wheels. And that's what this song is about that I wrote, House on Wheels.
He rode past Green Acres with a glimmer in his eye. Said, wouldn't it be something if my folks could live nearby? 12 trailers later, they were rolling down the lane. Concrete dreams and carpet floors, love poured out like rain. He bought one for Grandma, parked it close to his own. Said, you've got 2 homes now, no need to be alone. One for his daddy, one for his boys. He built a little kingdom, not just for show but joy. They called it trailer trash, he called it home. A place for the weary, the lost, and the lone. He fought through the permits, the neighbors, the noise, just to give peace to his mama and joy to his boys. It wasn't steel and wheels, it was love made bold. A house on wheels with a heart of gold. The county said no, the neighbors raised Cain, but Bernie worked midnight through thunder and rain. They poured the pads, ran the lines, made it right, while Elvis rode a rising sun at first morning light. Some said he was foolish, some said he was grand, but he just wanted laughter to echo through the land. He sat on the floor near tears in his eyes, said, why do they fight me when I'm trying to rise? They called it trailer trash, he called it home. A place for the weary, the lost, and the alone. He fought through the permits, the neighbors, the noise, just to give peace to his mama and joy to his boys. sweet home, a place for the weary, the lost, and alone. He fought through the permits, the neighbors, the noise, just to get peace to his mama and joy to his boys. It wasn't steel and wheels, it was love made bold, a house on wheels with a heart of gold.
Thank you all for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echoes. And today we build our home on wheels on the grounds of the Circle G. Albert Goldman, who's an author who did not like Elvis very much and used Lamar Fike as his main source, summarized Elvis's ability to overcome obstacles to his commune plans as waving a magic wand. So Elvis is facing a lot of opposition. He's already had to give up on the plans for his house. Had to give up on the plans for the houses for the guys. He's had to alter his plans to the trailers. He's facing opposition from his own guys about them, connected to the way that he wants to finance them. And we might notice that Elvis did not offer this deal to George Klein. And it might be because Elvis knew that taking on that house payment, that trailer payment, truly would be a burden for George. George is not within the Elvis economy. George is in the external economy. He works outside of Elvis. He works as a DJ. He makes his money there. Elvis controls the economic lives of those who work for him directly because he pays them directly. So he can give them more or less or add the gifts when he knows that they need it. It's more difficult with George because George is external. So he's run this deal with people that work directly for him. And therefore, if it does become a burden, he'll be able to adjust for that. Might not be as easy with George. So George, I think this might be the reason that Elvis hasn't brought George into this particular part of the circle yet. There is a trailer that apparently is used by people that rotate through, and they're not there every night. And so I'm sure that George and his girlfriend Barbara use a trailer. They have a place to stay. It's just not theirs. It's not all theirs like the others have. So at this point, George isn't missing out on anything. And from an outsider's view, Albert Goldman's view, there's all these obstacles, but Elvis has a lot of money. He's a millionaire. He waves his magic wand and everything is fixed. And as an academician, a person that's written his book, Elvis, and then publishes it as an academic work, I find that a surprising statement from Albert Goldman, that he believes obstacles are overcome by anyone by waving a magic wand. And I think it just shows the jealousy that Albert had for Elvis. But that's how he describes this period. And Marion is saying that I never thought that the Circle G story was this interesting. And Terry says it's very interesting. And Emma says that she loves all these Circle G stories and they're really helping to bring it alive. I hope so. That's the reason that I'm telling them, so that these stories can attach in your mind to the Circle G, what it meant to Elvis and what it really meant to his overall life, what was actually going on here. something that I think has been completely missed in every book you've ever read, every account of the Circle G that you've seen so far. Hi, Jen. Thank you for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And Marion says that she loves all my songs. Thank you so much, Marion. And she also says that the voices are probably AI. That is true. I write the words to all of these songs, and they come out of the source material that we all look at together, and my feelings about what I see in the source material. But the voices and the music themselves are AI, the musical performances. But the AI works based on the amount of emotional resonance that is contained within the words, within the language. Because the AIs are all built around language. They're large language models. They're all built around words. And within our language is encoded all of our emotions. And the more emotional intensity that they can pull from the words, the better the end product. That's the way that the AIs work right now. And Emma's saying that she wants an album. Closest I can give you to an album right now, Emma, is a playlist. And if you check in the description below this video, you'll find a playlist that mixes my songs with rare Elvis performances that I don't believe you've ever heard before. And right now, they're very young Elvis performances. The very beginning of his career. And some of them include the mistakes that he made. So if you want to hear all the songs that I've released so far, it's not quite all the songs that I've put out in these live streams. We're always going to be a little ahead in the live streams on the songs. But everything I've released so far with a video is out there on the playlist. And Gunn is saying that Goldman didn't write the book for money. Are you saying that he wrote it for money, or that he wrote it for spite for Elvis? Let me know, Gunn. Or Gunn is asking, why did Goldman write the book? Well, for publication, for money. Goldman wrote books. I'm trying to remember one of the other biographies that he did about a rock and roll musician, I think, or a pop culture person, but the other names are escaping me at the moment. It's kind of what he did. He wrote books about pop culture. Those are the ones that sold well for him. And so he got a good deal to do the Elvis book because none were on the market of an academic quality. And they knew they were going to sell because they'd sold over, I think it was 2 million copies of What Happened by that point. I have to look up that number again, but it was up over 1 million for sure. So there was a market for these Elvis books, and they knew it. And they knew that if there was a serious Elvis book, then you could put it out in hardback and get the full hardback price. You can run it through the entire, there's a whole system to run a good book through that you could reap money on over and over on the same book. The cheaper books like Elvis What Happened, it's usually like a one print thing and done. But a book that starts out as a hardback, has a longer lifespan and more profit potential. And Colleen says that she loves learning about the things that didn't make it out. It makes us feel closer to understanding Elvis as the man, not just the entertainer. And that is the point of this entire series, is so that we can strip away the image, which is two-dimensional, and which is what we see on the printed pages right now, and even in the pictures that we look at for the most part. And we really got to study all of those source materials, the original documents, and the pictures on a deeper level. And then we can see things that pop out. And my favorite trick is to put things in chronological order, because then you get a much better idea about what somebody must have been thinking at the time, because it's much easier to put yourself within the same place. But it's also easy to get trapped into thinking that this other person thinks the same way that you do. That's not always true either. Terry says he just gave this video a thumbs up. Thank you so much, Terry. And if anybody else out there has forgotten to give me a thumbs up at this point, make sure you hit that mash it like the king, which is another video that I've got out there, a music video, Mash It Like the King, about the way that Elvis liked to make his peanut butter and banana sandwiches. But here's an actual quote from Albert Goldman. A hitch developed because it turned out there were zoning rules, even out here in the country. You couldn't just slap down a colony of mobile homes. This demanded an all-out effort to obtain variances from the zoning regulations. When the variances were obtained, the wand waved again, and in a few days, no less than 6 huge mobile homes were trucked onto the property and lined up in a row on their concrete pads. So Albert's story doesn't quite line up with the other story that we heard, that Billy's was the first one brought in, unless it was brought in with these 6. And it also makes it sound like the trailers weren't brought in until the zoning rules were fixed. I don't believe that's true either. I believe the trailers were brought to the property, and then zoning regulations became an issue. And we've already heard one of the guys say that after the trailers were there, then Elvis brought somebody in and put the concrete down. So there's a lot of mystery about exactly the way that this happened. But to Albert, it's a rich man waving his magic wand around and things just keep getting done. And so what Albert's doing is minimizing the amount of effort that actually went into the physical production of this dream. It's only an idea in Elvis's head until it's trailers sitting on the land with people living in them, and Elvis riding up to them every morning on his horse and knocking on the door at 6 a.m. and saying, "What, are you guys going to sleep all day? We got to get out here and get the day started." That's when the dream becomes real. And Elvis is making it real, and it takes a lot of effort to get there, but Albert minimizes it into a Harry Potter kind of situation that Elvis waved a magic wand. It's like Bewitched, the television series. Sam wrinkles her nose, and suddenly we've got a whole bunch of trailers. So that's just Albert not really liking Elvis. And next time, we're going to hear from the guy who helped Albert, Lamar Fike, our favorite jovial Lamar Fike, who's always got a different version of a story. And he's going to tell us yet another version of things that happened and give us some more details that may or may not be true. But they'll be interesting because Lamar always tells an interesting story. And I'm going to leave you with a song before I go. And until I see you guys all again, you all keep on taking care of business.
Oh, 17, snow on the ground, Circle G, love all around. He bought that ranch, opened the gate, said, "Come on in, let's celebrate." Tractor pulling through the snow, laughter rising, spirits glow. Both behind, wives and men, family fun again and again. He wasn't just a star in lights, he was the warmth in winter nights. kindness wrapped in velvet flame, a heart that never played the fame. He gave us joy, he gave us praise, a piano song in a quiet place. From a jack to a king, in the moonlight ring, he gave us love, he gave us wings. Circle G, where the angels sing, he gave us everything. Riding horses, lakes so still, bridge and cross on the quiet hill. Barbecue smoke, stories told, moments more precious than gold. He'd ask me who I'm dating now, what I dream, what I'll allow. He cared like kin, not just a name. You live for love, not for acclaim. He wasn't just a voice on stage, he was the soul behind the page. A man who'd sing to heal your day and laugh at midnight, blues away. He gave us joy, he gave us grace, a piano song in a quiet place. From a jack to a king, in the moonlight ring, he gave us love, he gave us praise. Circle G, where the angels sing, he gave us everything. A shadow in the night, famous face, but heart so bright. Couldn't walk the street like you and me, so we built a world where we were free. He gave us joy, he gave us grace, a piano song in a quiet place. From a jack to a king, in the moonlight ring, he gave us love, he gave us way. Gave us everything. Yes, he gave us everything.
He saw the cross at dawn and said, "It's a good omen, and the dream again." At the break of dawn, through the window pane, he saw a cross in morning rain. White as grace, tall as prayer, calling him to build and share. Not a kingdom, not a throne, but a place of love alone, where laughter rides on horses' breath and peace outshines the fear of death. Come home to the circle and the sign, where the lake reflects the holy line. No one needs money, no one needs fame, just a handshake and a name. Come home where the cross stands tall. Come and share the love of all. Mobile homes and barbecue nights, trucks and trout and porch light rides. He handpicked hard to share the dream, a mythic village by the stream. This is more than land, it's grace, refuge carved in sacred space, a gift of love to friends and kin, protected from the world's loud din. Come home to the circle and the side, where the lake reflects the holy line. No one needs money, no one needs fame, just a handshake and a name. Come home, where the cross stands tall. Come and share the love of all. Oh, come and share